So just moving a little quickly now because we have to get to the big climax of the film, right? Hence the reason why we're here, right? So on the subject of that now, so another great moment, Reader Rahim, where he's talking about the whole hate and love speech. I love
Right.
just from a filmmaking perspective, right? You know, where
Yeah.
Mookie says that's a hype, and he exits the frame, and then the camera just
Yeah.
moves in on on Raheem with the brass knuckles, all that stuff with the hate and love, and as simple and one-sided a view of hate and love, it actually kind of makes sense. Where he's talking about, oh, the point of life is static now. He always try to fight love, and he kind of conveys it as his boxing match, and oh well, love wins. You know what I mean? Hate is knocked out, KO, and all that kind of stuff. But it's where he says, if I love you, I love you. But if I hate you, and Spike does some creative here, he has Mookie comes there and says, there it is, love and hate. Perfect
Right.
in my opinion. Okay, the way it's just like, to me, how I read it is just like, yeah, you know what I mean? Keep being positive and love and love and love and all that kind of stuff. But never think about where you'd be and how you'd react if you ever
Yeah.
put to a point where you are full of hate. It's just like, yeah, just brush it off, man. It doesn't matter. But that's why I love that punctuation there now, like, with Raheem not being able to finish his sentence. Because, yeah, in his mind, it's like, if I hate you, well, yeah, I really do hate you, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
yeah, powerful moment. And, of course, hearing the Fighting Power song in the background, yeah, dug that. Anything you all want to weigh in about the hate and love speech?
Yeah, yeah. Again, this is one of those really didactic moments that somewhat works. Just one of the issues I with the film, that the film, is one of these, you stop the movie dead to do something
Oh,
like
yeah,
this.
yeah, to talk about this, yeah.
Right. But it works for the most part. I don't really have a big issue with it. Yeah, again, good filmmaking section, because the camera goes into Lee's place. I'd love to see, like, I never see the behind the scenes to this, to where the camera was exactly in comparison to Lee. I keep I'd like to think that Lee grabbed the camera at that point and held
Oh,
it, but he probably just walked out
yeah.
anyway, or whatever.
Mm. I
Stuff
think
like
he
that.
ducked out. I think he ducked out. And then the camera
Right.
the
Yeah.
cameraman move in there because it's
It's
mostly
up to
handheld. But I watch it, like, I'll admit I was watching, like, is this really handheld? Or,
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Yeah.
it's a pretty subtle and smooth transition. That is how I find the blocking and timing of it is quite well done.
Mm.
Um, and again, it's one of those, yeah, as I say, good writing is knowing how to write the limits of how characters think. So Radio Army is not some big time philosopher, right? He's not Derek Parfit, right? He just how he thinks about the world and how his perspective works, and he just, even though he's this guy who just walking out to a radio, like, he clearly have a perspective of the world, like, it's that, and he have a philosophy that driving him, and they just set that up in the context of the world, not some big brilliant character or anything like that. He just a guy, and then they make it work in the context of the slice of life, and just this section of New York, and
Yeah.
to set that up. And I said, this is how you had to think about the world. This is how I think about the world. And
Yeah.
he did his friend. I go to Sal's Pizzeria, and hey, let me talk to you about this thing that I'm thinking about. That's it. Simple. You just get out of the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
All the time.
And,
So I
and,
see
and it's a
people like
great
that.
little character. It's a great little character moment for
Yeah,
Rahim because you didn't really hear him talk. Well, I think it's the first time you
exactly.
actually hear him talk, really.
This is
Right. And then for me, like, I say it all the time, I go in about my business, I go by sure about I'll meet an old friend or something like that. He would just tell me about the day, and then he'll tell me about something that's important in his life. And it's like, as I say, you have our old statement, don't take somebody literally, but take them seriously. Right? Clearly
Yeah.
they're trying to say
Yeah.
something that's important to the world. And
Mm.
I love stuff like that. He's just a guy, and he's friends with this, and that is it. They
Yeah.
just meet, they talk, and then they went on about the business. Like,
Right.
great little pieces, good little character stuff that they set up. But
Yeah.
again, I'm one of those that have a problem with stopping the film dead for stuff like that. But whatever, it's fine. It
Mm.
works. Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
there's
Any
a
quick thoughts on the scene?
a scene you were talking about earlier, Matthew, where Raheem, the focus was on the hate side of the knuckle rings. So in this sequence here, now the thing is, for me, like, I did not notice that earlier. I didn't notice that before, but I know in this sequence, after he's finished talking with Spike's character, he holds his hand, I think, with the love
Yeah, we
knuckles.
call him the love side. He's called the
Right, the
love
love
side.
side. Now,
Mm.
for me, seeing that tying back to that scene that you were talking about earlier, which honestly I didn't even notice that had motion with the hate side of it. That
Yeah, well, to be
just sort
fair,
of
something that told me, let me just watch this scene
yeah,
carefully and see which side of that. I was like, oh, heat.
Right.
Ah, okay. Very
that
clever
sort of
Spike.
amplified. Yeah, that sort of amplified it. It sort of shows almost like where his allegiance is, how he feels about the people on the street, that sort of thing. So for
Yeah.
me, I just really dug that. I was in love with that. And yes, I
Yeah.
kind of deaf deaf poetry poet kind
Right.
of yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. I mean, even back then, Bill Nunn was a great actor though. His performance in this was
Yep.
great. Yeah.
Mhm.
Claude, quick thoughts on the Heat Love speech.
I do love. I mean, I love it. It's kind of the cherry on top for how this movie, like, this movie on the one hand does have a certain amount of realism going on for it, but there's also a lot of ways in which it's very, I don't know, like, I feel like, I don't know if impressionistic is the best word,
Right.
is a good word. Like,
Yeah.
even things like the characters' names, like bugging out Radio Raheem, Mother Sister, the Mayor, um, characters' names, the the mood, the tone, the lighting. And then, yes, even the fact that characters kind of take moments to just kind of stop and talk about themes and ideas. And that's, a lot of them do this. And sometimes it's framed as more casual conversation. Other times it's like this scene where it's more of a monologue type thing. But I don't know. Either way, it's something I do appreciate. It's something I do appreciate, and I feel like, especially given all the stuff that happens with Radio Raheem later,
Mhm.
there's a certain amount of foreshadowing, especially since it's one of the two scenes that leads directly to a key decision Mookie makes later, which
Yeah.
I love that, because you get the bit earlier with the mayor, always do the right thing, and then you get this bit where Radio Raheem talks about it's either love or hate, and then
Mhm.
later that ties directly into key moment in the movie. So, no, I love it to bits.
Yeah. All right, so just running through some more moments before we get to that scene, right? Just moving a little quickly here.
Yep.
So, Radio Raheem heads over to Sal's though, and bruh,
Oh,
headphones.
we quick we talk about Radio Rahim getting the batteries.
That no, that
Good.
comes
Oh, no,
after. That
we
comes
have
after. That comes after. Don't worry, don't worry. I
Okay,
just
right.
moving in order with the
Right.
film. Yeah. So, bruh, headphones. Shred. You're actually gonna walk into Sal's like 2 slices,
Yeah,
and
he did.
Sal's like, I can't hear with this music. 2 slices.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, come on, man. Like,
Yeah.
headphones, bro.
Right.
Headphones. But eventually he does lower the volume and then he says 2 slices, right? Um, but it's what Sal says here. This little slight little detour here. Initially Spike wrote Sal to be racist, but like
Right.
probably not unaware that he is, right? Because yeah, the show he's kind of unaware that he is. It's more deep rooted, which I'll touch on later on, right?
Right.
But Danny himself, the actor, wanted to play him kind of, like a guy that you would like now, but at the same time, there's something about him,
Mhm.
like, if you push him that
Well,
far now.
the thing is, okay, so why like the Sal character? The Sal character really works in the sense of, all right. So one of the big things with black, I noticed with Black American racism. I can't really speak for Trinidad, but in Black American situation, white Americans love old black men, but they hate young
Right.
black men. You know that whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. Because by the time you get a certain age, you're not really a problem anymore.
Right.
That your own aggression, your behavior.
Interesting.
And that in the case of Sal's character is like you notice again, I'll go back to his relationship with the mayor. Is yeah, he liked the mayor because again the mayor settled down, he balanced off. He would argue that the mayor have like a real struggle and a real harder life than all these young punks that he can't tolerate.
Yeah.
Kind of
And
attitude.
they're both old, so they could kind of relate to each other in a way, right? Yeah.
A lot more. And that's why that's why I prefer, that's why I'm glad that Sal's played as is instead of just this outright old racist bull Connor kind of type. I don't like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
I prefer plate. I will
Yeah.
the later point about with Moogie's sister as well, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. We'll talk about that. But yeah,
Yeah.
but it's just these subtle things that Sal says, especially when you push him far now. So he's like,
You come into Sal's, there's no music. No rap, no music, no music, no music.
it's like, aha, okay, yeah, I dug that. I really, really dug that, right? Then, well, later on, we get this really, really great long take, and this is where Sal is talking to Pino, and it's just the slow zoom in into, well, it's just the both of them just seated in front of the window facing the Korean store, right? Once again, as I said before, the windows, characters in but not really knowing what's going on outside, and vice versa, right? So Sal's all like, why you always so angry? Why you always so full of hate, Pino? And it's
Yeah.
like, yo, I just hate these people, Dread. I hate these niggas. And he asks, like, why? And I mean, while I hate the response, I could kind of understand where he's coming from. He's talking about, well, his friends in Besselhurst, they laugh at me. It's like, oh, you come in here and you feed in these monkeys and all that kind of stuff now. And then, well, Sal's like, well, yo, like, your friends never put money in your pocket. They'll pay your rent.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I
Yeah.
here for 25 years. I've seen kids grow and all that kind of stuff. I see them more or less live off of my food, so I can't just leave just like that. And it's how the scene ends, though. Well, before I forget, the music for this, well, I forgot to mention Billy, as in Spike's dad, handles the music for this. Just that
Right.
jazzy music, though. Totally love, right? And it's how the scene ends with Smiley knocking on the door. Sorry,
Okay.
knocking on the window. Like bang, bang, bang. And Pino just getting angry, and he responds again. And then, well, Smiley knocks again. And he's like, hey, well, Sal trying to be the peacemaker. Like, yeah, how you doing? It's like, Malcolm, and that kind of stuff. And then Pino loses his shit. He goes outside, cusses about this. Like, fuck you. It's just back and forth, though. And just Sal's reaction to all this, though, is just priceless, in my opinion. I love that. But going back to Mookie for a bit, because before all this is where he goes on his lunch break, actually. So he goes back to his home and he's just taking this hour-long shower, whatever it is. But I just love how that long take ends. As it ends, though, you just see Mookie just come out the shower like, whoa! You know what I mean? This kind of
Right.
the scene. Like, this kind of cutting the
Right.
tension again. Just as the tension was about to build, it just kind of stops right there. I really, really dug that.
No, I was thinking about. I was thinking about. I remember thinking of this earlier when you were talking about the Ruby D scene where she's cooling off with the great big basin of ice water, and then I think of it again when I think of the scene where Sal and Vito are talking. But like one of Lee's other big influences is very clearly Brian De Palma.
Right.
Like he's got a very
Yes.
similar Brian De Palma. He's got a very similar Brian De Palma thing where the camera's always moving in some way. Like it's either moving or he puts it in very strange places, whether it's like the bottom of a tank of water or it's, coming in high or it's coming in low. It moves in on the zooms, it comes in, and then there's not quite the same De Palma editing. I don't know if Lee
Yes.
ever experimented with the whole split screen thing, but there's a very clear similar thing, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I remember. Good.
No, that's the thing with a lot of the 90s directors like Tarantino, Lee, and these guys is that they just straight up bite. I argue that that's all of them is just straight up bite off all of the new school people. In my opinion.
The couplers, the Scorsese's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like this is a generation of filmmakers that all grew up,
Right.
watching all these masters, like watching all of their films, discovering them in some cases, things like
Right.
that. I always find it hilarious that Tarantino and Lee have kind of this ongoing kind of argument feud thing going on when both of them are drawing from a lot of the same inspirations.
Pretty
I know.
much, yeah.
Yeah. But
Like, they
hey,
could
you know what I
probably
mean?
talk about-
Tarantino's a racist. You know what I mean? He turned slavery into a Western, right? But hey,
Yeah,
I love
like,
Django Unchained, right? I love that movie.
I do. I love living in a world where I can like both Django Unchained and Do the Right Thing, and then just kind of watch Lee and Tarantino argue at each other, and I'm just sitting here like, but who's gonna get custody of Samuel L. Jackson? Don't fight.
I know, right? Right. But speaking of Ruth Carter, right? So great moment where Bugging Out basically trying to get people to help him boycott Sal's, right? So he
Boycott
goes to
Sal's.
14s,
Right.
and they're all like, no, I mean, we grew up on Sal's Pizza, man. But I love I think it's Ahmad or his friend has a Black Panther comic book too. And like Black
Yeah.
Panther eat pizza, we eat pizza. I was
Weed
like,
pizza.
brilliant.
And it's
This just
wrapped up
one
in
of
its
blinking
case
and
and
missing
everything.
moments there. Sorry.
Did Lee almost direct a Black Panther movie in the 90s, or was that just a rumor?
Not almost, but it's one of those his name was flouted kind of things. Because remember it had a point in time where Wesley Snipes was also Black Panther, and they were floated it for a little while, so his name came up.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
So now we get to the scene that you mentioned, Ricardo, with Jade and bugging out, right? And he goes, well, this is where Mookie now comes back from his lunch break with Jade, right? And bugging out is like, yo, we're gonna boycott sales. I mean, and is that moment between him and Jade that I love, the way Jade's like, you should be using your talents for some more constructive, or at least your fire, you know what I mean? Your fury for some more constructive, right? And I just love Buggins' own reaction where he just kind of laughs, like, you know what? I love you, Gina. You know what I mean? So yeah, you know what I mean? Just that kind of understanding. So yes, clearly he like, he just respects her so much that he's just gonna let it slide that she doesn't really quote unquote understand as much as he does. I love that, right?
Which is like that's the whole point. Because to me, she get it obviously. She
Yeah.
his condescension and him just not get. He is the one who kind of clueless though.
Yeah.
That's who.
Right.
But yeah, go
Right.
ahead though.
Because just going back to like what the three guys said about black-owned businesses, maybe if he worked a little bit harder, he could have his own place, right? Just
Right.
going back to what Sal said, just a point, just a perspective, right? Which I love. And then we get to the moment where Sal talks to, Jade goes into the pizzeria, and Sal clearly has eyes on her. And I remember I love what he says, you got the biggest eyes I've ever seen. You know what I mean? And yeah, he clearly likes her because in the show, I mean, she looks good. You know what I mean? Young Joey Lee looks good, right? But going to what you said with
I found it interesting that they would put this dynamic in the film. Don't know because it doesn't go anywhere necessarily, but like it's just a thing that they bring up.
True.
Um,
It like you're right. But to me, like how I just saw these moments, it's all these moments of tension, and you're thinking that it's all gonna build up to one thing, but then the thing happens. No, the actual event happens and catches you by surprise, though. So it's not like it fakes you out, like, oh well, you think something's gonna happen here, but it doesn't. But it's all this kind of leading up in subtle ways that what happens at the climax, right? So yeah, like even I might look at this moment and be like, well, this really don't add anything to the show, because really what happens is that, well, Mookie clearly thinks that that Sal has eyes on his younger his little sister, basically, right? And touching on what you said about Brian De Palma and Claude, the moments where you're seeing Vito and Pino, and well, mainly Pino and Mookie staring down at Sal is very. It reminded me of Scarface, like that moment before Tony kills his friend, where he hear that doo, doo, and he just zeroing in on the eyes, you know what I mean? It always reminds me of that, like just how he builds tension, how he built tension in that film, right? So that was really cool.
I do find this particular scene interesting because you can almost hear Spike Lee putting a pin in this as something he's going to come back to with Jungle Fever, because he's definitely like, he's kind of like teasing at the idea as part of the overall, like you were saying, like all of these tensions building up towards the climax. But the whole idea of interracial relationships, especially between Black African Americans and Italian Americans, and like what that looks like, and the kind of how it's like a mutual distrust of those kind of relationships, but that's definitely. But you can almost hear him making a note, like, "Oh yes, come back to this," and then later we get Jungle Fever. But yeah,
good point. Yeah. So back to we boy now, Raider Rahim. This is where we get the still funny as hell battery scene, though. Yes, it does touch on racism again, because he's going to the Korean store. It's like, well, I want 20D batteries, 20C batteries, 20D motherfucker D, right? Which makes me laugh.
I know, like it now clicked for me where that Kanye West lyric come from.
Oh, yeah. She want these motherfucker these, Rosie Perez, right. Yeah, it's a reference to do the right thing. But I mean, yes, it's played for laughs, but once again, it kind of goes back to like what happened with the mayor and the seeing Koreans again, like, oh, let's pick fun at them because they say C instead of D, right? You know what I mean? But it's still a funny line, though. Funny moment actually. And I like
That
how kind of reasonable, well, kind of in and out of reasonability. Oh gosh, Rita Rahim is. At first, it's just like, because when the owner says "motherfuck you," it's like, you know what? Yeah,
you're dumb.
motherfuck you, right? It's like, yeah, put in the batteries, but then he just goes back. It's like, yo, check the date. What does it say? Marcha. What do you mean Marcha? Or you mean it's in March or whatever it is, right? And then he even goes as
Nice.
far as having them take out the batteries out the bag and check
Yeah.
how much it is. Like, dog, like, come on.
Real asshole.
One scene in particular, which I at first I always felt like didn't really add up to anything, was the scene where the mayor saves the kid from getting bounced from the by
Right.
the ice cream truck. Like
Right.
Mhm.
I don't know, something about that was just like, okay, this is kind of dragging the film, doesn't add up to anything. I do like
Right.
when the mother comes in and beats him, and well,
It's all
the
over
mayor's
way.
like, well, you didn't have to go, you didn't have to beat him like that. And then she says, well, I appreciate what this is saying, but you won't tell me how to raise my kid. Neither you
Right.
or his daddy. And
Right.
like what you're saying, Claude, is almost like, you just putting a marker on it, like a point, like, okay, I'm gonna get to this soon enough, maybe with Crooklyn or some other film involving,
Right.
family, stuff like that, right? But
I
while I was
honestly,
watching this, I was still like, but this had nothing to do with the story itself, though. It's just a distraction. But then later on, now when you get to when you get to dusk now, there's a moment where mother sister, is talking to the man, is like, and she's like, I
Yeah.
saw what you did there. That was very bold of you. You know what I mean? I mean, and it's like, oh, okay, she's trying to warm up to him a bit, and it's ironic
Yeah.
that it's at dusk and it's trying to cool down now. It's like, okay, now she's less pissed at him. So I kind of get why
Mhm.
that scene was there, and then it kind of comes up a little bit later when the mayor steps in for a particular situation, right? But we'll get to that in a bit. Back to Mookie now. So right after the incident with Mookie, sorry, with Jay talking to Mookie now, you have this great moment. Sorry, Jay talking to Sal. We get this great moment where they go outside and Mookie's all like, I mean, I don't like how he's looking at you. He's talking like he wants to hide the salami, and she's all like, what are you talking about and all that kind of stuff.
watch.
You could kind of tell though that they was just kind of bouncing off each other. Can have a couple of moments where you see they kind of giggling and laughing. You know what I mean? Because but like it's one of those moments you kind of let slide because they related, right? So it's not like, oh, they flub the lines or anything like that. But yeah, there's a moment where they kind of giggle, like, you know what I mean, like, why you being so angry and all that kind of stuff, right? And then you get one moment, one of those subtle moments, but I love it. And this is something that always blew me away about this movie, right? The whole Tawana told the truth graffiti that you see on that wall. For a man like
Right.
Spike, right, to come and put this point out without stopping the show to say, oh, this is what we're talking about, right? And even for somebody like me who had no clue about who Tawana Brawley was and, the rape allegations she had with, I believe it was 4 white men that she accused of raping her, right? For Spike to stop, sorry, not stop the show, but to let the show flow and
Yeah.
still say, hey, she told the truth. I love that. And also because it was relevant. You know what I mean? It was literally happened 2 years before, well, the movie itself, 1989, right? And I was like, wow, Jet, for a filmmaker to kind of touch on real life issues in your fictional film blew me away, and it still does. Um, but but the following scene, though, boy, Mookie,
Hmm.
boy, Mookie have real balls, right, to go back to your boss and be like, dog, I really don't like what it is you do to my sister, Jen. I love
Yeah.
Sal's reaction where it's like, dog, I
Serious.
hope you're not thinking what I think it is you're thinking, And it's I'm not sure which filmmaker did that. I'm not sure if it's Scorsese, right? Or maybe it's Spike himself. Just the camera lingering on one person and then going back to the next person, back forth, like zipping. I just always love that in terms of just that scene and just how it built tension. But yeah, boy, for you to come in at your boss like that, you're like, jeez, right? That was crazy.
Just
When
go
it
back
comes
to
to
your boss like that. No.
Yeah, boy, like, I don't blame Sal's reaction at all. Like, I tried to shit you, but
He
dude,
passes off
don't
way
even
too
go there.
nonchalantly.
Don't even go there. And
There
then
was
sorry, go
there
on.
was one thing. No, there was one thing you said just now about about Spike Lee like addressing real life events in this movie, or even like acknowledging them and things like that. I have always appreciated about, and this was something that struck me about Black Klansman, where Spike Lee does love tying his movies directly into the, like, even if it's so even something like Black Klansman, right, is a period piece, and it's set in the 70s. But Spike Lee doesn't give you the luxury of being able to say, "Oh well, it's a period piece. It happened back, and this is not relevant now."
Right.
Yeah, and then the end picture.
The end that I know
Yeah.
a lot of the Academy got all pissed off about, and so like this
Oh,
has
I
been
love
this
that.
man.
Tell me.
Oh yeah, like you can always tell you've done something right when the Academy gets uncomfortable. But but no, he's always done, and I feel like Do the Right Thing was one of the earliest examples of this. But he's always grounded whatever he was saying in like very relevant contemporary topics, and then which is hilarious because we get told as filmmakers, right? We get told don't do stuff like that too pointedly because you'll make your film dated, like whatever. But it's also amazing how well Do the Right Thing has aged, despite how pointed and how direct he's making it. Like by all the rules of filmmaking, we get told like, oh no, don't reference current events, don't do that. Like you're gonna make your film dated. And yet here we are in 2020 being like,
Yeah.
this movie is very relevant, isn't it?
Exactly.
Love the man.
Right, and then we get a genuinely sweet scene, and it's actually one of two scenes with Spike Lee and Rosie Perez, which is so ironic. Right, as you said, Ricardo is his fantasy because it's almost like deep down inside he just want to be with a Latina chicken. But anyway,
right, as
it's
if
a
you could
great
be a
moment
Rosie
actually.
Perez.
Yeah, and he gets Rosie Perez, right? And just to be clear here, yes, he used the two takes of them kissing each other. It's not an editing mistake at all. It was intentional. He used two takes. I was like, the first time I saw that, I was remember, wait, no, this is like something wrong with Meniscus also. But then you see, well, it was a stylistic decision why he did that. I don't know, but I mean, it works. This is nice. And it's just basically just the two of them together. He does the whole ice block scene.
That scene is sexy as hell. By the way, that scene sexy as hell. Like that kind of eroticism is somewhat difficult to pull off. Like I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about erotic thrillers recently, and realizing that the reason so many of those movies don't work is that eroticism is sometimes awkward if you do it wrong on film. So it's amazing how sexy the Ice Cube scene actually is. Like, damn.
Right. Because again, it's the Spike Lee fantasy hour, but it does work because you get a good sense of chemistry between the both of them anyway.
And it's a nice cool down moment to it because well also too Senior Love Daddy plays this nice chill R&B song in the background too, so it fits everything.
There's this film, I think it was 40 Days Without Dick or something along those lines. I'm trying to remember the name of the film now, but there was a scene.
Oh gosh, right. Where the guy had to abstain from sex for 40 days, and it was with the ice block scene. I remember that. Yeah.
It was an ice block, or was it a feather? Because I remember, in my mind I'm thinking it was a feather, but that is what that reminded me of, where he takes the feather or something like that, and he just kind of runs it across the length and breadth of her, and so that sort of like I feel like Spike does it better, or like 40 Days Without Dick was sort of inspired. That scene in 40 Days Without Dick was inspired by this.
Really?
But yeah,
okay.
I really like that one.
Well, that's the title, sure, but it's some
what is it really?
Something. Not 40 though. That.
We're talking about that one erotic thriller with Mickey Rourke.
Oh no! It's a comedy. It's one of those.
Oh, it's a comedy. Okay.
2000 sex comedies. Those were big back in the days. Well, back in 2000s.
Oh
actually.
Lord! Oh, Dark Ages. I remember.
40 days and 40 nights. 40 days and 40 nights.
That's it. 40 days and 40 nights.
For some reason, I said 40 Days Without Dick, but okay, there you go.
Right. So nice moment, right? So back to the store, back to Sal's, right? It was kind of funny seeing the two cops from before there, and also funny one of those, way foreshadowing moments though, where one of the guys will talk about, maybe you should reopen the place called Trump's Pizza, Trump's Plaza. I was like,
Kushner.
wow,
Oof.
boy. And I
You gotta
picked
run,
up
you
Ooh.
on
know.
this because I had these subtitles on. I was like, wait,
Yeah,
Trump's
no.
Pizza, Trump's Pizza, you know?
Uh,
They talk about Trump,
Yeah.
uh,
dude.
You
Wow.
Yeah,
gotta
no,
run.
how
Trump
did
is
you do
Trump.
that?
When I think of Donald Trump, what Donald Trump is and well, was and still is Mr. 80s guy, right? He is clearly from somebody from the 1980s. So yeah, he was pretty big in the 80s. That's when he started
Yeah.
bringing his, and everybody thought, he was like completely bullshitting about his Forbes list, how much money
Yeah,
he have, even back
Oh
then.
yeah.
And
yeah,
all them things.
Remember
right.
this was the era where he had that goddamn cameo in Home Alone 2.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah. I forgot about that.
Giving,
Just
giving you
how could I
directions.
forget about that?
Yeah,
And
right.
well, just to get back to Pino boy. Pino
Ah,
is such an asshole, Trey. Like as soon as the cops
oh
leave,
my
Trey, the bar's like,
god.
Vito, come inside. Let's come inside the storage room for it, right? And this is sort of fight with each other, right? And great long take here, right? And Pino is like, you know what I mean? Black, white, no. I don't know, like even though what he's saying is bad, right? I just love they're gonna stab me in the back with his spear, like spear in the back. Something about that I just love Dread. And it's just the back and forth between the two, Dread. Because Vito's all like, no, like, dog, when we talk about Dread, I have no problem with black people, and well, Vito, sorry, Pino being who he is, like, nobody, they're gonna stab me in the back, Dread. But just such a powerful moment. And then well, okay,
And
then we be in this tight spot. So from a filmmaking perspective, totally works, right? Next scene now, you seen Buggin and Buggin out and Radio Raheem and Smiley. Well, sorry, it starts off with both Buggin and Raheem though. Just sat up just by a wall, we Raheem doing this thing, playing Fighting Power. And the banter between the two of them is so
Hmm.
how to say, like it's so what's the word I'm looking for? So
Hmm.
one-sided at the same. It's so one-sided. Right? Like like yo man, you know what happened today? Yeah, Sal just Sal got no black people in the war, man. And and Raheem was like on the string, man. Yo, I almost had to bust his head, man. You know what I mean? And it's just so it's kind of childish at the same time. That like, yo, this guy pick on me, Dre. So you know what we had to do? We had to go back for him.
Go back.
Like this
Right for
so
him.
so
Right.
so one note now. I mean, and then with Smiley coming in too, that was funny as well. And then what makes it work though is the guy who's we hear off screen talk about
Turn off that rap music. I'm in here trying to get me some motherfucking goddamn
Yo, I'll
sleep.
fuck you up quick. 2 times. 3 times.
so now we get to the infamous climax, right? Just kind of running through it, just making sure I have all the facts, right?
boy.
Because yeah, the
that
climax really
moment.
is what makes this film work, right? So boy,
And
so
it's a lot.
yeah,
It's a lot. Yeah.
so let me breathe, right? So starts off with Sal pretty much talking about, you know what, today was actually a really great day, man. You know what I mean? Like, and when I heard that, I was like,
Oh
wow.
yeah. Yeah, this is about to, yeah.
To start off that scene with that, boy, like, jeez, boy. And then you go as far as talk about, you know what, I should reopen the place, call it Sal and Son. And
Right.
then afterwards, he look at Mookie and he say, you know what, Mookie, you're such a good person, and I almost see you like a son, Trent. And then just priceless, though. There's the camera movement. You're seeing you're seeing Vito. Then looking at Pino, because this is right after the argument they had in the storage room. And then to Mookie, and you could tell there's something off, Trent. And just from a camera movement perspective, I love that. Right? So you take it, okay, place, date's done, they're gonna close up. So then the four kids show up now. It's like, oh, you know what I mean? We're hungry, we want some food, blah, 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 right? So they come in. So here we have the witnesses, right? You open back up. Then Buggin and Raheem show up. Raheem
Oh
blasts and
boy.
fight power. And, Sal being Sal is like, turn that music off, man. And then Buggin goes off. And, props to John Carlo. Sorry, John Carlo's performance in this, though. anger in that scene, boy, the anger that he gives off, boy.
What I tell you about that noise? What I tell you about the pitch? What the fuck are you deaf? Nah! Are you? Fuck you! We want the black people on that motherfucking wall of fame now! Particle fucking hoe and been all fucking day fucking out! Turn that jungle music off! We ain't in Africa! Why ain't gonna be about jungle music? Why ain't gonna be about Africa? It's about them fucking pictures!
That performance, boy, that's that anger coming out, boy. Okay, you could tell it comes from a deep place. It's not just actively for the sake of it. You could tell that he was drawing from real life for that one, boy. And it's just okay. So it's funny, like how the kids themselves, like yeah, you know what I mean, like when Sal grabs the bat now, it's like, yeah, go at Raheem Dread. And then afterwards, when he brings up when he actually uses the N word for the first time, it's like, oh, you know what I mean? And it's how they view Switch now, you know what I mean? And
oh yeah,
I remember Martin, I think it's either Martin or Matt say, oh, we niggas now, you know what I mean? And then it's all about, let me mess up Sal now. And it's how Raheem, right, so Sal just goes off. He cusses out Raheem. Raheem gets pissed off, and then that's it, though. That's just like the boiling point for Sal. Sal smashes the boombox, and everything stops, though. And there's like this moment of silence, and it's like you could just the tension that builds. You could just cut that with a knife, though. It's just so chilling. Like even if you didn't know what was gonna happen next, like if you saw this for the first time. Just that silence alone, though, is just definite in my opinion, right? And Sal just had to come in and say,
I just killed your fucking radio.
And I haven't seen the show in a long while, though. This is Raheem's reaction. Like he picks up the remains, though, the remnants of his boombox. Yeah, like
cradling a child.
It, though. And then he just goes off, though, like my music. Pulls Sal from the counter, this wheels on him, though, and then starts choking him, Jed. And in the process, is chaos. There's a moment where you actually see Martin say, "Oh my eye," you know what I mean? But actually, real life, he really did get his eye hit in that scene. So that was true to life there.
Shit.
And the fight pretty much goes outside. The mayor overhears what's going on. He comes in. He tries to break it up. So once again, going back like what happened with the kid. As a good thing that they brought back the kid, because the kid that was saying, fight, you know what I mean? So him, how I saw it, I forgot to mention this earlier, is going back to what he said to Mookie, doing the right thing. Him saving the kid earlier on to him was doing the right thing. So him, of course, trying to stop the fighters. Hey, I think I should do this. You know what I mean? I'm the mayor. I'm doing the right thing. So him coming in is like, break it up, right? Cops show up, including the two from before. And then while Sal on the ground, he getting choked now. So the police pull Raheem off, right? Buggin gets handcuffed. And I always love the moment where he's being carried across to, before he actually goes, he's actually put inside the police car now. He's complaining and all that kind of stuff. So now we get to, the scene of all scenes now. And this is where, the cops have Raheem at a chokehold. And it's just that shot of his feet, like over, like you know what I mean, like just hovering over the street, just shaking, right? And Gary, the same Caucasian couple I mentioned before, have him, with the chokehold, but is his friend now? Well, his partner saying, "Gary, that's enough. Gary, that's enough."
Stop.
Every time I hear that, though, it's just like punches to the gut. Like that whole sequence is just punches to the gut. It's one thing after the next. The trio guys saying you're killing him, right? And then it's like no, you know what I mean? Just holding on to him, and then eventually Raheem dies, and it's when he drops to the ground now, and there's a close up of his hand. You see the love rings. Once again, another punch in the gut, another punch in the gut. Of course, this trips off everybody. Bugging out, he is just like shouting and cursing the cops and all that. And then one great moment where he says, I'm a black man, you can't kill us all, Dread. Like just that line alone, just resonates with me, And the cops being who they are, it's like, we have to get them out of here and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So right after they drive off with bugging out, and then well, of course they put Raheem in the back of another police car and they drive off. There's this nice wide shot where you see Smiley walk into the frame and he's crying, John, and like
Yes.
his movements and this him not knowing what to do and how to process what's going on, Dread, is just so heartbreaking, Dread. And then, well, Spike once again just touching on real life matters at the time. You have this great dolly shot, right, where you're just seeing characters talking about, they bring up names like Michael Stewart, right, and Eleanor Bumpers, you know what I mean, who also died at the hands of cops back then, right, and you're seeing Mookie, and you could kind of tell it's both Mookie and Spike at the same time, just kind of watching everything, just silent, just don't know what to do. At the moment, he's standing right next to the Vito and Pino and Sal, right? But then he moves over, like he just goes over to where the protesters are. I'm thinking, okay, he's gonna just complain. He's gonna speak. He's gonna support them now. But then eventually he just okay. So you have a moment where Sal says. And I kind of get where he's coming from, but it just kind of felt to me like spooning moment, kind of like, I just really don't know what to say at the time. So he says, you do what you got to do. And everybody just flips out. You're like, dog, how you could see that. And Smiley comes in and say, one of the police was black. Although I didn't really notice it though, but for him to spot that is like, wow, right? And Mookie is just watching all of this, right? And then we get to the controversial moment of the movie. The moment that this, as a little detour here, makes this one of the most controversial movies of all time, one, and also kind of made certain critics and viewers believe now that if they watch the show, that black people will do the same thing after they see the show. And that is grab a trash can and throw it through that window. But it's what he says before he throws it to. And this is once again Spike Lee doing, kind of breaking the fourth wall in a bit, saying hit. And then he throws it there now, you know what I mean? And then, of course, everybody runs in, starts to loot the place, starts to throw stuff about, smash stuff, all that kind of stuff. And it's Sal's reaction, though, where it's like, that's my place! That's my place! And it's Pino, though. It's so ironic for him to say it, but it kind of goes back to his detestment of black people, where he says, well, fucking niggas, right? It's like, jeez, boy, you know what I mean? And it's just seeing the three of them, seeing Pino and Vito and Sal just stand up there silently, just watching all this kind of stuff, watching what's going on, Dread, is... It hurt, man. It really hurt, man. Like, I know we kind of had to despise Sal at this point in time, Dread, but it's like, what is the end result of it, though? You can't really blame them for the reaction, right? When the police shoot... so... Then afterwards, you see Smiley comes in, and he has matches on him, right? So he lights a match, throws it in.
Light up.
Light up the whole place. Everybody just cheering, and then Mother Sister, who was by the window all the time, comes on. It's like, yeah, burn this place in the ground. I always thought that was a really interesting moment of her, coming out and supporting what's going on there. So then afterwards, the police firefighters show up, and once again, Spike doing, the whole reference into real life matters. Everybody says Howard Beach. Everybody, first time I saw it, first few times I didn't know what it was about, and then when I actually read it up, it's like, oh, that's why he's saying that. And it makes sense. It doesn't feel dated at all. It's like just a powerful moment, right? And I'd admit, once again, gut punches keep coming. It's when the firefighters just started aim the hoses at the protesters. Right?
Yeah.
Oh,
right. That is hard to watch, right? That is hard to watch.
That's difficult.
And then there's one of them that says, "Hose that black sucker down, Dread." I'm like, wow. Another moment that's just a gut punch, and at the same time, you gotta admit, your boy Gail Terry had a moment though, is when Mother Sister just starts yelling.
When she starts to scream.
No!
And then the mayor.
It's so sad, boy. My God. But it's just, right, like literally a minute ago, she's like, yeah, burn this down. And then for her to be yelling, it's just such a powerful moment. And then, of course, the mayor coming to calm her down. I just really, really love that moment. And then last before we get to your thoughts on just that scene, just that sequence alone, you hear "Fight the Power" for the last time, and this is where Smiley's still inside the Sal's Pizzeria, and finally he posts that he puts up that picture of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King
Yeah.
on the wall, and it's just that final shot of him looking at it and smiling with the fire behind him, and hearing that song, and then it just cuts to black. Brilliant, brilliant,
Yeah.
brilliant, 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 brilliant. Everything. That's that whole sequence, just from timing to shots to execution to emotional weight to is just brilliant in my opinion. So yeah, any thoughts on this particularly rough scene in the movie?
It's oh man. So I feel like rewatching this movie as a whole, but then especially that scene this week, Lee
I
Right.
know, right?
understands how, first of all, I mean, Lee understands and has always seemed to understood how police violence stuff happens, but then also riots and like how riots get started and like how, because I
Yeah.
love how you spend all day with this little community, you get all these little tensions, and you have all these little factors, and then there's all these things that have been going on, and then all it takes is this one moment. It basically like just it's drop cops outside. No, all it takes is this one moment of like dropping a match on that gunpowder, and then the whole thing, just all the tensions, everything that has been foreshadowed and hinted at and built up all day just goes off all at once, and then it becomes confusing and it becomes loud. Like the sound mixing for this scene, where it's just
great.
it's this soundscape of absolute chaos from the minute Radio Raheem and Buggin' Out walk in there. The whole sound design of this sequence it's chaotic and it's wild and it's intense, and then just showing the violence, the moment when Raheem gets killed, which is it's so. I mean, I think Lee himself pointed out just how uncomfortably similar Radio Raheem's death is to the way George Floyd was killed.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and which is easily like which makes it even more difficult. There's so many, and like even like that moment where it escalates. Like there's this kind of precipice moment, if I remember, where the mayor is facing the crowd. This is before Mookie throws the trash can, and the mayor is turning to this crowd, and you can see that they're on edge. You can see that they're angry. You can see that you can see the tension. And he says, "Now let's all go home. Let's all go home before
things get
we
worse.
regret.
Before we do something that we all regret."
And he has this moment, and then they start getting more restless, and then of course Mookie chooses hate. Like, remember earlier where he's talking about the choice, and he's talking up where Radio Raheem's talking about love and hate, and Mookie chooses hate and throws it through the screen, throws the trash can through that window, and then they trash the place, and then fire happens, and then of course more authorities show up, and like again talking about how much Lee understands these things as only a particularly active, socially active African American man in the United States can. Just how the official response so quickly turns to violence, like how quickly they turn the hose on the protesters while they're trying to stop the place burning down, and like that decision doesn't even take them that long to make that decision, and it's rough, and I feel like it's definitely I feel like in his way, in the way it has aged, Lee is kind of giving us an inside look into, because I feel like a lot of times when these kind of riots and stuff break out, a lot of people are like, whoa, that escalated quickly. Like I remember, I don't know if anyone else felt this, but I remember seeing the news that George Floyd had died, and like seeing the footage making the rounds online and all that other stuff, and it was sad and I was upset. But then when the riots started, and then how quickly they started, how quickly they spread, how everyone was talking about it, like it felt like we went from 0 to 100, we shifted, and Lee captures how quickly that change happens in a brilliant way in this entire scene, and it gives you remarkable insight into it. It's also a weird, like, this fun little detail. Well, not fun little detail, but I remember talking to someone about, because we were talking about how, if you think about it, why have all the biggest riots, especially in the U.S., but like all the big like race-related riots have always happened in the summer. Like even the L.A. riots broke out in the summer, and Lee again, Lee answers that question with, like, it's hot, everyone's irritable, everything's on edge, every little beef everyone has with each other is everything that normally goes under the surface is brought to the surface, and so everyone is upset, everyone's on edge, and then all it takes is one little thing, and it sets people off. No, it's one of those things that's been simultaneously. Rewatching it, it's simultaneously difficult to watch because of how timely it is and how much Lee predicted certain things, but also gives you remarkable insight. I also just, like, side note, but I do love the whole exchange with the Koreans in the Korean shop across the street.
Oh yeah,
as well.
I know white. Me black.
Yeah, I'm not white. And it's amazing how the protesters, like you can tell they almost kind of form this mob, and they almost turn, and they're almost about to trash their place too. And then it's only because of, like, the fact he's holding this big broom, and he's, like, appealing to the fact that, I've been oppressed as well. Like, we're not, none of us are winners here. Like, you can't come after me. I'm oppressed too. I'm just trying to make a living. Don't trash my place. Like, that kind of thing. No,
Yeah.
It's the thing that the movie has been building towards, and Lee handles it masterfully. I love it to bits.
Right.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Tracy, any thoughts? Quick thoughts on the scene?
Yeah, no, there's two main things that sort of crossed my mind. One, the police officer who's telling his friend that's enough.
Right.
Random thing, that particular officer would later become the station chief in Station 19, but as another heist story scene all by itself. But I watch it now, and I ask myself, for why are there any police officers who would see this sort of violence going on, having it inflicted by your fellow officer, and is telling them to stop? And I saw that shot of, like, the four officers, because we know the one guy who has his knee on George's neck. But I'm saying, where was the stop, no, push him aside, that's enough from the rest
that's
of
true.
them?
Yeah. Because it
And
was just the guy, guy, recording the video,
Yeah.
and the person next to him. Those were the only two people here. Everybody else, including that one Asian cop, just stood there.
Just stood around. So that is a thing that kind of crosses my mind when I look back at it, and then I think about seeing the firefighters turn their hose on them. And I remember watching TTT growing up, and they're talking about, like, apartheid, and seeing documentaries and stuff on, like, the protests, and seeing everything happening, and the hoses on, like, normal people, and those hoses are not, like, it's not your garden hose of water that is coming. This is something that the force that it's coming at you, it can actually do some measure of damage, and that really riled me up, and it still riles me up. It continues to rile me up when I think about it, and having Mother Sister come back and, like, scream. I felt that deep within me. And that, for me, those are the three things, actually. Those are the three things that kind of stand out for me. That, and of course, when they're lifting him up to put him in the Rahim, to put him inside, because there's the sister who died in police custody, in her jail cell. And I'm thinking about that whole sequence as well, because I'm like, how are you going to explain that, Sandra? And I'm wondering, how are you going to explain that as well? What's the logic that you're going to use? Because it is basically a dead man in your car. What are you going to how are you going to rationalize this thing?
Right.
That's what sticks out for me.
Right. Ricardo, quick thoughts on that
Yeah,
scene.
well, Claude pretty much covered everything that I would have probably said. Yeah,
Right.
no, to address well, the Tracy point out on the whole, well, how come it just say that's enough or whatever it is, especially in the case of the George Floyd situation, is that that's kind of the root of the issue here. I mean, it's just such a such a this whole thin blue line, police protecting other police. I always make the joke. You make the joke that if you have 100 good cops and one bad cop, and all of them protect that one bad cop, then you have 101 bad cops. That's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And there's this in this movie, it makes the case for the quote unquote good cop. But yeah, at the end of the day, he take it upon himself to just keep choking this dude out. But till he die, he's doing it so much force. He lifted up somebody as big as Raheem, right? A man the size of Bill Nunn, he lift up all of his feet there. So as he had that. The scene is very, very well done. It builds, escalates really good, excellent. I mean, I think it's all three types of editing techniques going on at the same time. Good rhythmic editing, good template editing, and it does fill it up the scene and the thematic nature of the editing as well. And yeah, that final shot with the character name, I forget his name.
Smiley.
Smiley, right. That last shot that they cut of him smiling, and it's this weird dark irony going on with the picture. They make it work. It's built very, very well.
And just to touch out that character quickly, character quickly, right? I do love that, this one person that you was laughing at, like, oh, like, what's the point of this Smiley character? And
Right.
look at the simple thing that he does, and it's simple to him, but at the same time, like, this is what all this, was all about. Putting that picture on that wall.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, go on.
And they just again, it builds so well to culminate. It's just a nice punctuation at the end of the scene. Well, that's the thing. I really forgot the film because I always thought, in my head, I remember seeing it, and in my head, I always thought it was like a real pro black movie kind of thing, and everybody else. But the way how it frames itself, everybody's kind of to blame in terms of not de-escalating the situation, not doing what they had to be doing. Like I really thought, oh well, this movie actually frames things a lot more nuanced than I remember. Like it's a lot more nuanced than I remember just watching it for this now. As a film, again, I said it's very didactic, but it's also reasonably balanced in terms of what they were trying to tell and do in terms of the aspects of the story, and it in itself is conflicted about what it is trying to say, not confused, but conflicted in terms of what approach you take in terms of solving and addressing these problems. Because we in the real world are still conflicted about it, right? We don't have a clear answer, obviously. So I like how they address that in it. Well, if the last couple of scenes at the final scene of the movie does this and handles the situation quite well as a final shot. So yeah, we could go on to the next.
Yeah. Right. So I love the following. Call it a soliloquy, if you will, from Love Daddy, right? Where you're just seeing the rubble, basically, just the aftermath of what happened with the riot, right? And not gonna see the whole thing, but I just love what he says. Are we going to live together? Together, are we going to live? Like just.
Right.
It's Yoda-ish at the same time in how simple he says it, but at the same time though, it just makes so much sense, right? And then we get the final, the second and last moment that you'll see between Mookie and Tina, right? Because Mookie more or less sleeps over at Tina's place, right?
Right.
And it's him basically talk about, I had to go and get my money, I had to get my $250, I had to get paid. And who just cussing them out like, you need to be a man and all that kind of stuff there. And so ironic though, because this is really what Dee was touching on with the relationship, where you have these guys who just quick to get a girl knocked up, and then you don't really you're not capable of handling that family, and then eventually you leave for long periods of time just to get the money to come back. So it kind of relates in a way to like what what the mayor was talking about with seeing your kids hungry and all that kind of stuff. So I love that contrast there. So last scene though, where you see the sister and the mayor himself, I love the crane shot for this because it basically starts from the bedroom and just zooms out and
Right.
stops at Mookie. Like just that camera movement alone from inside the building through the window. Once again, I was saying about windows and then on to Mookie. I love that, right? And then we get the final scene, which, yes, still is one of my favorite moments of any Spike Lee movie ever, Jed. I just love how it's just these two conflicted points of view. You get where they're coming from, but it's just them come to a head, right? So it's basically Mookie heads back to Sal, or what remains of Sal Pizzeria. Sal is there just sitting down, defeated. And it's like, what do you want? You know what I mean? I want to get my money, and we got to get paid, right? It's like, you don't work here no more. It's like, dog, well, you still owe me $250, Jed. So got to get paid, right? And here's the thing, like, I love just like if there's one piece of writing in the whole movie that I love, is just this moment, because
Oh yeah.
what it's saying is so straightforward, so blunt, but it's what's underneath now. So I always say Spike. So Mookie talking about I want to get paid. I mean, with 250, right? It sounds like, oh, well, this is all you studied about. Like, you don't even care about what happened the night before. But it's like, yeah, I mean, that's what I have. That's why I work it towards. I
Life
have
goes
nothing
on.
else for me. So, and he also brings up the fact that, hey, I mean, you can always get the money back. Like, you have insurance now, so you have nothing to worry about. You're still good. But at the same time, for Sal, because he mentions before when he was talking to Pino that, oh, well, this is all I have. This is all I could do. So it's not like I could just rebuild Sal's Pizzeria and, hey, problem solved. It's like, you took a part of me, Jet, so I can't just build it back. I might as well just head back to Bensonhurst and, just live the rest of my life out. You know what I mean? So it's hard for him to really get back get back on his feet now. But you understand from a person like Mookie, oh, it's easy for you because you're richer. So that's why for me money matters. That's why you got to give me my 250 because I don't have as much money as you. You know what I mean? So I just dog that dynamic now.
Oh, it's so good. There's a great. I don't know if anyone else has seen the trailer for Spike Lee's Masterclass, but since I can't afford Masterclass, I just watched Spike Lee's trailer for Masterclass over and over. But there's a great moment where he actually talks about that scene a bit, and he's like, what makes this scene powerful is that they're both right. So what happens when you have two when you have two characters arguing and each one has a point and your audience doesn't quite know, like the audience doesn't have a clear. It's what makes Captain America Civil War work so well, because you can't point to a side and say that person is right. You have to kind of look at both, listen to them argue, and try and figure out which one you think is the closest to being correct. And it's one of the reasons why that is such a powerful scene, honestly.
Yeah. And well, you're right. And speaking of powerful though, Danny's meltdown in this moment though with
What the fuck is wrong with you? This ain't about money. I could give a fuck about money. You see this fucking place? I built this fucking place with my bare fucking hands. Every light socket, every piece of tile, me with these fucking hands.
every time I hear that, I just always feel like somebody just squeezing my heart out. I feel that rage. I feel that pain, but and it, you know what I mean? It's not like, oh well, I'm a millionaire, so you know what I mean? No, it's not like that. You can tell the man worked for everything, Jen. Yeah, he has insurance, but at the same time, you can tell he poured everything into that business, Jen, and it just went. So when he just lets loose, it really works too. And once again, you know what I mean? You're right. Both characters are right. So he says, well, you know, Mookie says, motherfucker window, Raider Rahim is dead. I understand. I get point. Okay, cool. But, and eventually they just come to this very, very rocky truce too. And I just love where Sal says, it's going to get hotter today. What you going to do with yourself? Mookie says, go get that money. Get paid. And dog, I don't even blame him. I do not blame him at all for saying that, Dread. It makes sense. Like, if that's what I had to do to improve my life, then yes, so be it. I had to get paid. Sorry. It's Sal's reaction though, where he just like, okay, cool. You want your money? All right, cool. And he just rolls up these $500 bills and throws it at him, Dread. And I just love where Mookie's like, you know what? Just take two, and I'll give you back your 50, right? And look, I just love what he says. I need to get back to my kids, right? So right there is like, Mookie actually shows a bit of character growth near the end. So
Yeah.
it's not just solely about him making that money and ignoring his baby mama for weeks and then checking she one day out of the month. It's like, look, I kind of need to go back to my family trend. So that's why I love the little moment where he picks back up the $200 bills and leaves. Because it's not about him anymore. It's about him and Tina and his child. Love
It
that.
kind
Love
of
that. Love that.
that whole Sal pelting the money scene for me was almost like, you know what, you're an animal, or your people are already animals, so I'm just going to throw it at you, that kind of vibe. I mean,
Oh,
for one of
that's a
a
good point actually. I didn't think about it like that. But just
you're
more like
already an animal, so
answer.
here, just I don't have the respect to give it to you in your hand. Go fetch.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a really good point though. For real, for
Good
real.
point.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, dude, I just love that Mookie would take up the $200 bills and be like, yeah, well, I might as well. You know what I mean? You gave me
Right.
$500. I'm not working for you anymore, so best I use that to, take care of my baby mama and my kid
Yeah.
until I find another job. So I love that, right? And just the fact that they just kind of leave knowing a little bit of each other, knowing a little bit of where they come from in this situation, whilst they haven't really rectified anything. I love that. You get some nice closing words from Senior Love Daddy, and once again, well, just being how relevant with time with the times back then. Register to vote. The elections coming up. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
love that. So
Yes.
it's pretty
Right.
much a less violent
The
way
mayor
to
is
fix the
not
problem.
tolerating property damage and all that kind of.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and when I heard that, I was like, yeah, this is exactly the same stuff that they're hearing right now. After what happened with George Floyd. You know what I mean? Elections coming up, so yeah, make your change there. You know what I mean? And then we get the final text. This is scroll. Basically,
Yeah.
it's two quotes which I love, 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 love. Right. First off, from Martin Luther King. Right. So basically, what he's saying is that violence as a means of achieving racial justice is impractical and immoral. You humiliate your opponent instead of understanding him. Malcolm X,
Right.
however, says, well, you have to bring an end to bad people in America because they use their power to bring down, good Americans, right? But it doesn't mean that
Right.
he advocates violence, but he's not against using violence in self-defense. As a matter of fact, he doesn't even call it violence; he calls it intelligence.
Intelligence.
I just
I
love
Right.
how it just
love.
stops with the photo of
Right.
Martin and MLK, and it's just like Spike telling the audience, look, what do just who do you choose then? Who do you think is
Yeah.
more right than the other? And I just love that the movie ends like that. Just
Right.
one last thing I just want to mention before I get to my last read, right? So the song that they play at the end, Never Explain Love. This is from Al Jarreau, the great Al Jarreau.
Yeah. For real.
Brilliant, beautiful song, beautiful way to end the movie. And there's one thing about the song that I really love though. See, last minute of that song, or the last minute and a half, the string section in that
Mm.
song alone, by bring the man tears out of me. It is just so beautiful though. And like thinking about like what you saw in the movie, it's like that kind of you went through this emotional ride, and now it's like okay, it's over. Now you can kind of breathe, now you can relax, but now it's time for you to really reflect about what happened. You know what I mean? And just thinking about like the end of the movie, it's like okay, that event happened, but life still goes on. You know what I mean? There's still life that you have to live. So you learn from it and you move on, pretty much, right? Even though it's gonna be hard for some people, right? But that's all I have to say about that song. I just love that song. So closing words and rating on the movie, right? So yeah, boy. This is a show that over the years really, really grew on me, right? And while I wouldn't go as far as saying this is like the best Spike Lee movie ever, like we could argue that it's either this or Malcolm X, right? But I haven't seen Malcolm X in a long while, so maybe I just need to check over that movie, and then I can make my decision. But just to talk about as a film itself, yeah, this is one of the best films like I've ever seen though. Just
Mhm.
this is your third film and you are taking this risk because yeah, they were going into uncharted territory with this one, talking about race in this explicit but not too explicit kind of way, like really addressing issues like that. Having this climax be, the death of a black male at the hands of cops, and I mean, just blurring the lines over who is really right in this decision. And then just the title alone, Do the Right Thing. Because really and truly, did anybody really do the right thing in the movie? You know what I mean? It's not too,
Right.
you're not really too sure. And this little segue here, even to this day, I believe people come up to Spike and ask, well, did Mookie do the right thing? You know what I mean, and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And even to the point that people still ask him, well, even at the time when the movie came out, they asked him, well, why did this guy that we were kind of following, why did he do this? Why did he throw the can and all that kind of stuff? And as Spike says in his own words, Spike threw the can because his friend Radio Raheem got killed. That's it. Has nothing to do with, breaking down Sal, you know what I mean? Or I hate Sal. It's because Radio Raheem was killed. That's why he did it. He reacted in rage. That's why he did that. And it's a shame, though, that as he mentioned too, no black person ever asked him that question. Why Mookie truly can? Only white people did it. Only white people asked him that question. So think about that for a sec, right? But yeah, though, going into uncharted territory, telling a story like this, and just the backlash, though, because people thought that, you were trying to say that, eventually we're gonna have all these riots in the States because people, hate racism, all that kind of stuff. And then Spike will come in and say, well, you really think my film is gonna do this? You really think so? And look at like all these movies, and they always cite like Arnold Schwarzenegger films. Like, look at all these action movies, right? You're not gonna say, after somebody watches one of those films, you're gonna get a gun and start shooting people down, right? So why you think because a black man take a trash can and throw it in a pizzeria window, you think all black men gonna do the same thing? So it's just that confrontational vibe. You could tell that Spike was in that zone, like he wasn't afraid, to respond to comments like that. You know what I mean? Even though some of those he regrets later on, but still is like, look, this is the story I wanted to tell, right? But at the same time, it's not all gloom and doom. I love how vibrant it is, how colorful it is. You know what I mean? There's moments of humor, moments of joy, but yes, there's poignant moments, really dark, depressing moments, and it's just how it all blends in this day, in this particular day that we just seen here. Acting is stellar across the board, even when it's just extras and side characters. Everybody comes in, do their job. The music is brilliant. Just using Public Enemy's Fighting Power is brilliant. The music by Billy, brilliant. Everything works in this show. And last but not least, I just love just the characters, just how everybody feels, realistic now. You know what I mean? It feels like this is a lived-in neighborhood, and we're just here to just see how it could just go all sideways throughout the course of a day, right? But yeah, the messages in this film ring true, and I'm just glad that I was able to rewatch this. I know it's off of, unfortunate circumstances, but it just really all goes to show just how powerful this movie is, and just how powerful art is as a whole. That's being able to take what you can do and present a perspective, present different perspectives, and just kind of persuade the audience or whoever's viewing this to judge it on their own. Because yeah, at the end of the day, everybody is not black or white; they're gray. So it's not like, Sal's the one, is Sal's fault, or it's Raheem's fault, or whatever, right? Everybody is so complex, so well developed that, yeah, you know what I mean? For years to come, people will analyze the show and be like, was Mookie right in this? Blah, blah, blah. And that's just testament to how great this movie is. So 5 out of 5, see this movie before you die. This is a real deal. And yes, 31 years from now, 31 years from the time this movie was released, yes, it still holds up. If you haven't seen this movie, make it a must. Unless movies of this particular nature or subject matter isn't your cup of tea, then yeah, avoid it. But if you are angry, if you really do have that rage about what's going on right now, yeah, give this a look. And if you haven't seen it in a long while, yeah, definitely check it out, because yeah, it still holds up. Ricardo, last words and rating on Do the Right Thing.
Yeah, as I said, it's one of those films that just ages very surprisingly well. It had a little goofiness and dumb jokes, and as Claude mentioned earlier, there's a certain amount of impressionism and surrealism that gels with the film somewhat, but it makes a lot of sense in the context of it being in the hood. In my opinion, at least, characters have nicknames and statements, and the framing and structure of it falls together quite well. And yeah, ultimately for me, because of the relevance of the story, and again, well, it's perfect timing that we're doing this. It holds up in more ways than one than you think, because it's all more about structural issues and not just police and people melted down in one bad day. It's building up a lot earlier than that, and Spike had a lot to say for that. And yeah, film techniques work up, acting, as you say, holds up quite well. Framing, yes, all this stuff with the windows again really holds up for me. And yeah, as I say, I give this one a more or less next up perfect score. I'll give it like a 9.5 out of 10, 10 out of 10, close to, but more like 9.5. As I say, money issues, slight issues, is where stuff had to kind of just stop dead to tell you thing. They could make that flow a little better, but that's about it. For me,
Right.
it's next perfect other than that. So yeah, that's
Nice. Tracy, last words and rating on Do the Right Thing.
I'm gonna do the punctuous pilot thing and say I find no fault with this film. I like I really don't I'm giving it an A plus.
Nice,
Primarily,
nice.
I really give it an A plus. I find everything that was told about this film, everything in which this film is presented, is beautiful. It is relevant, and to be honest with you, that is the thing that kind of I really wish that we had lived in a that we live rather in a society where this could be a movie that we see that shows us how humanity of the past was. But the fact that we are still,
Mm.
we're in 2020 and we have to still have the same, choking and the same scenes and the same who is right and who is wrong. And here's a perspective that, that is something in and of itself. For me, I did crack up. I will admit that I did crack up seeing a very young Martin because my intro to Martin was his, well,
me
was
too.
Martin.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So seeing a Fresh Prince Martin ish
yeah,
was like that was real heights. And as for like Samuel's character, there's a tout or was a tout in Arimo. Whenever he's trying to get people to come into the maxis, trying to get people to jump into the maxis and stuff, he's always spewing on the spot poetry. And so for me, so I was like, oh, this is hilarious. But it's really a good film. And I would even say, even if it's not your cup of tea, even if it's not necessarily something that because I don't necessarily like to be in an angry mood. So I will go and watch something else that might give me more of a different type of an emotion.
Mhm.
But even if it's not, I think this is a film that is important. It is a film that you should see. Um, I'm going to say at least twice, because if you glossed over something, you should go back and look at it again at some point in time. And yeah, it's just good. And for someone who still has a good few bits of Spike Lee to get into after all this time, I very much love this. I very much love this film. So that's me. A plus.
Nice, nice. Claude, last words and rating on Do the Right Thing.
So I mean, I agree with everything that everyone has said. Perfect film. I mean, for me, it's the most important kind of perfect, because I don't believe that any film is perfect, but
Right.
it overall works so well that any of the tiny issues are not big enough to detract from it in a major way.
right.
So I would definitely give it a perfect. No, it's absolute perfect. One of my all-time favorites. I think, and going off that, I think it's a particularly good film. I mean, like Tracy said, I wish I could live in a world where I could say, "Oh man, this is dated. Oh man, it's not that bad anymore." Like,
Yeah.
um, it's. I will say what I like about it is that it's definitely a nice middle ground as far as a movie about racial injustice and racism and colorism and all that stuff goes. Like, it's I put it in a similar category to Taika Waititi's Jojo Rabbit. It's a movie that handles
Ah,
a very difficult subject,
Yeah.
but it helps you through with it. So it's not like, so you look at something like Jojo Rabbit that handles an incredibly difficult subject, but it helps you handle that subject. Unlike something like Schindler's List that pulls no punches. Do the Right Thing is a movie I would compare with something like 12 Years a Slave, which is a visceral, brutal movie that's difficult to watch and revisit. But Do the Right Thing has enough. It helps you process. Like, Spike Lee is not a compromising human being, and I love that about him. And one of the things I love about this film is how many filmmaking rules he just kind of gleefully breaks. Like, he doesn't doesn't pick between realism or surrealism. He doesn't. He deliberately grounds it in subjects at the time that are, trending topics, as it were. He breaks all these rules. He doesn't hold back. He doesn't compromise. But he still handles this difficult subject, but also helps you through it. It's at a time when, with all the shit happening, one of the trending movies on Netflix is The Help. Like, I wish I could go to all those. I wish I could go to those people. No, go ahead.
No, I was like, everybody's moms, please stop.
Yeah, same. Oh, because you're thinking of all those people that are like, I need to learn about racism. I'm gonna go watch The Help, and I'm like, dude, I wish I could just loan my copy of Do the Right Thing to everyone in turn.
Yeah, for real.
I mean, at least I need to see it. I was gonna watch it, but I was gonna watch this particular flick, but my parents loaned me the book instead. But I haven't seen Malcolm X yet, but it's on Netflix, and so I'm saying, like, why are you all watching The Help? Malcolm X is right there.
Thank you.
Like, you want to learn about racial injustice in America? Malcolm X is right there. What are you doing? But no, I honestly, Do the Right Thing is a movie I do recommend to people when if people who are watching the stuff happening right now with surprise. Do the Right Thing is a good movie to recommend, I think.
Yes,
totally do. And yes, folks, if you have seen the film, feel free to let us know what you thought about it. Do you think it still holds up to this day, or do you just think it's just a product of its time? But and I would say though that if you agree on the latter, all four of us will, pretty much come down hard on you and be like, nope, no, it still holds up to this day. It is very, very, very relevant. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. So once again, guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever this is. This was Matthew Bailey and Ricardo Medina. And Claude Lilford.
Howdy.
And Tracy Hutchings.
Be well.
And this was another episode of Retrospect Reviews. So until the next one, take care, fight the power, Black Lives Matter.
Be kind to each other.
Please.
Take
in 2020,
care,
dog. 2020.
It's crazy out there, everybody.
Jeez, for real.
Yeah.
To take a break. Jeez.
Yeah, boy. All right, guys, take care. Peace.
Solar flares and Godzilla's nuts.
No, listen. There was a news report. I was telling somebody recently. There was a news report of an asteroid the size of whatever that was passing by the Earth.
Texas,
I know it was one of those like it was like it was a stadium or something like that. But I remember, and this is not a good thought to have, but I was so fed up with 2020 that when I saw asteroid was supposed to pass, my first thought was, oh, thank God. Just
as big the joke is that the Justinian calendar was off by 8 years.
Yes, it's 2012.
Apparently, Lord. Someone forgot to carry a number.
Right.
But 2020 has been rough indeed. So yeah, just be careful out there. Just take some words of advice from Mr. Senior Love Daddy and chill. That's the word of the day, chill, right? So till the next one, take care. Peace.